Upon reflection, this might have been a bit more than I can chew, because, frankly speaking, I like my free time. Even if it's just playing video games, or watching YouTube, or movies, or TV shows, or whatever, but it's going to be worth it. I know it's going to be worth it, so I'm just going to start doing it. And today's the first day, day one. I have some information to share with you, aka the plot. And by plot I mean something very general to plot. You get the idea. But basically, for the next, I'm assuming, month-ish, so the first 4 videos I suppose, it's going to be mostly just outlining information and kind of figuring out where the story is going to go, figuring out where like all the plot points are going to be, figuring out chapter by chapter what's going on. So first off, just kind of the act structure. So probably just going to be Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and then all the chapters in there, which lead to the climax of each chapter or each act, and then, you know, the plot of each chapter as well, which gives the overarching hero's journey, you know, rising action, climax, all that, to the book itself, and hopefully a series to follow. Or, you know, I just might, you know, I should just keep myself humble and see where this goes. So, yeah, we'll just see where this goes for now. Alright, so, as you've probably noticed, we are outside, because I find that I am better in a place with less distractions, and inside has more distractions, more TVs, more computers, more things like that. And it's kind of nice just outside when there is presumably less construction going on nearby, but is what it is. Okay, so here is my Google Drive and kind of how I've organized things so far. So, first off, this is, as you can see here, the book version of kind of what I've been writing so far. And if we go back a step, Waves, which was the working title when I first started the TV show, has a bunch of more stuff. This is, again, kind of the more screenwriting focused stuff and a lot of the assignments I did for that class. So most of it is not relevant to this, especially this vision board, which is notably nothing like a vision board if I had actually looked it up beforehand. But anyways, I have 3 documents here. This one is kind of the main one ported over from the TV show version of this, which, if we open it up, is the Bible. Which, if you know about TV shows specifically, this is basically the master doc of all the information. So that basically it's for directors and writers of any given episode can kind of look at this for any sort of information they may need, as opposed to asking the creator of the show for every last detail. But anyways, this is kind of just what I was making, and a lot of this is not final. A lot of this I'm going to change because I haven't actually edited this document in a long time, and a lot has changed in my mind of how I'm going to do the series since then. But it's a good overall starting point. Meanwhile, there's 2 more documents. This one, which I obviously just barely started, is just a series overview of Book 1, Book 2, Book 3, kind of how I want the whole thing to go. Very macro, large scale, not super relevant for the first book at least, but kind of good way to keep in mind what I'm going to be kind of reaching for, and, you know, finales, character arcs, stuff like that. And then lastly, which I'm going to be working on primarily in the next few weeks, is the act structure. So I'm going to kind of outline each act itself, chapters in each act, and ideally how they interlace, go together, yada yada. So, what is Rising Tides exactly? So, let's go over to the Bible. So here we can see a few of the themes that I kind of want to touch on in the show, which those who start with a plan to change the world for better sometimes find themselves thinking that they know what is best for the world, but indeed it is not really the best for themselves. It's been touched on before, but I like the kind of idea of it. And then when we were young, we believed that doing good is easy and straightforward. It is not until we grow up and mature do we realize that it is never ever that simple. And then, if something is absent yet remembered, it is never truly gone. There you have it. So, the main overall plot is the Atlas siblings, which is Miles and Willow Atlas, who are, just the main two teenage character protagonists in the show. Both seek adventure in their own different ways, acceptance, and a better life for themselves and others. They unintentionally find a key. Now, this is the thing that might change, because the key itself was kind of just thrown in there because I needed a plot device for the first episode, the hook. But I can change that up for the series. I need a plot device for the series. So for the book, I need just something else, something different. Because, honestly, once again, I was dealing with a deadline and I needed something, and it was similar enough to what I was going for, but the key to the, as it says, nuclear bomb was kind of just a placeholder for something more interesting that I'm going to be coming up with soon. In an ancient ornate box. That might not change. They're pursued by a large figure class. I'd forgotten. This is basically just the pilot script, so this is a very condensed, very wrong version. So I'm just going to move on at this point. I mean, if you want to read it, that's fine. What inspired it is the concept that humanity in its current evolutionary state, more or less, obviously a lot of small things, but more or less, has existed in its present form for about 200,000 years. Yet we only have really documented written history for the last 5,000-ish years. Give or take the civilization, stuff like that. So 95-ish% of all of human history is just completely lost to time. So what happened? And obviously this is taking place in current day, well, near future, I should say. But it's a lot of the stuff that leads back to that is what the show is about, book is about. I got problems. So here's the general thing. The Atlas family lives on the Silver Seal, an old 50-foot fishing trawler that has been repurposed to be a salvage ship for Misty Atlas's business, Atlas Antiques and Salvaging. Misty is the single mother of Willow, 14, and Miles, 15. I might change the ages a little bit, but that's probably where it's going to end up. Our main characters. Now, one thing that I have not written down here, because I had changed my mind about it, so I think I deleted it, but this is kind of the hook that is going to be in the prologue, which you might have spotted over here. So, the first big event of the book in the prologue is current day. Basically everything west of the San Andreas Fault, which, if you're unaware, okay, so loosely this is the San Andreas Fault. The premise of this is that in the prologue there is a humongous earthquake never seen before, which basically causes this entire fault line, everything west of it, to fall into the ocean, just completely obliterating those societies. But there is remains left over. The cities are just underwater now, basically, not completely destroyed. And many of the people did survive, including Misty and henceforth her children, who, as I point out here, Miles is 1 year old, and she is also pregnant with Willow. So, super young. The prologue is going to be a fun, hopefully epic, that's what I'm going for, basically action set piece in which she's trying to survive this cataclysmic earthquake and tsunami and stuff like that. And then we pop over to present day in the book series, which is probably, well, considering the math of it, is like 14-ish years later. So for right now, I'm just going to kind of write for a little bit, kind of get some of the chapters down, and then I will meet up back with you later. Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow. We'll see in about 2 seconds. 1, 2. Okay, forget what I said earlier. I have something else to tell you that you should know. So, I've told you kind of the premises, backstory of the book, but I haven't told you what the book itself is about. The majority of the book, and the 3 books, is these 2 siblings kind of first stumbling upon and then investigating further these ancient secrets that kind of seem to be ever present around where they live, which is in an area just off the coast of where Los Angeles kind of was and is currently, obviously underwater, and they live on a boat, which you probably caught on. But the main civilization in that area is a repurposed oil platform, which now is basically a huge city that has been built on and a bunch of people live on because there's nowhere else to go for all the people that were displaced by the huge earthquake. So the series is about them kind of discovering these secrets, largely underwater, so there's going to be a large amount of like scuba diving type stuff, and then there's definitely some supernatural elements involved in what's going on, perhaps what even caused the earthquake. We'll get into that later. And then forces that seem to be taking over these newfound societies that both cannot be explained and need to be explained. And obviously they'll find adventure along the way. New friends, new enemies, stuff like that. And yeah, that's the type of story that I enjoy experiencing, and this type of story I like telling. We'll see in about 2 seconds. 1, 2. Okay, so I'm back. It's now 10:20, which is about 3 hours earlier. It's about 10:20, so around 3 hours since last was recording, and made not as much progress as I would have liked, simply because I had to go do an errand that I was not expecting to take as long, which is fine, things happen. But either way, but I still, it was a start, and I'm glad that I was able to start and get a little bit of progress. So basically, I did a bullet point style outline of the first chapter and about the first third of the second chapter, and then did a little bit of lore work as the things kind of popped into my head. So I kind of came up with these. Let me find what I wrote down there. Kind of what I call a secondary theme, which is kind of the class divides in between the kind of three main groups of people. So there's the people who live on land, the people who live on boats, and the people who live on either oil platforms or repurposed like tankers or cruise ships. For at least right now, I've come up with these names, though I might change them if I come up with something better. But I mean, they're decent now, they're just not spectacular. Maybe they'll grow on me. I just came up with them an hour ago. So, first one is floaters for people who live on boats, which I forgot to write down. Viewed as more fortunate by, the people float on boats. That's what I came up with. I could have said sailors or something, but realistically, a lot of people in this aren't really sailing. They're just kind of anchored down somewhere, fishing or something like that. And then next up is the mollusks, which I hope I'm not stuttering too much with. I said I stutter a lot. And I mumble a lot, which I'm sure is as annoying for you as it is for me when I edit these things to figure out what the best use of my words are. Yeah. But anyway, I kind of figured that as a name because it kind of goes with the same vibe of people who live on the oil platforms or large ships, because they cling to the nearest object that they can find. That's what kind of floaters and then people who live on land kind of refer to them as, because they think they're kind of just these desperate clingers who just kind of exist wherever they end up. But is what it is. And then there's the landlubbers, which out of these three, I think this is the most likely one to come up with a better name for, because it's not landlubbers. We're not doing pirates per se. So I might come up with something better, but for now it's that. Obviously, those are the people that live on the mainland, and one of the big aspects of these is that while the floaters and the mollusks, close enough. The mollusks and the floaters don't like each other. They think that each of them is just, like worse in lots of different reasons, I'll get into those details later, but they just don't like each other's lifestyles primarily. Don't like each other, but they both hate the people on land because basically the people on land largely think of the ocean dwellers as uncivilized and dangerous and also desperate. So because of that, there's very strict immigration procedures in place, and so almost no one's allowed to go to land. It used to be different, but it's gotten worse through time. So yeah, floaters and mollusks hate landlubbers. And that's going to be kind of one of the themes, because Willow kind of secretly wants to kind of become a land lover, because she wants to kind of go onto land and kind of see the world and wants to kind of get out of the ocean life. And while most people kind of just accept their fate in a way, like they're just kind of, well, this is who we are, this is our kind of culture, our people. So they just kind of stick with it and don't really, change much of the status quo. She is someone who wants to go do that, even though that pretty much everyone she knows absolutely hates those type of people. But, that's one of those things that happens in the story. So, yeah, just a quick overview of the first chapter is just Miles basically stealing something from basically the corporation that runs and operates this oil platform, which is called Next Angeles. I don't know if I referred to that as, because this, yeah, I did refer to that. Anyways, and then kind of the guards chasing him as he does it, and then him narrowly escaping in kind of a fun way, and also introducing one of the other side characters along the way. And then chapter 2, which I just started outlining, is just kind of an introduction to Willow's character and also Misty's character later on, which she is the main character in the prologue, but is a secondary character in the main story. So it's kind of introducing her much later on, like 12, 13 years later, and kind of see how she is a mother, and how the relationship is. And that will continue on throughout the book, obviously. But yeah, this is where I'll end it today, and then we're going on to tomorrow, which is... Okay, so day 2 of writing this novel, and if the microphone still picks it up, I'm apparently not the only person that has not got a lot of stuff done recently. How are they still hammering? Anyways, though, today is going to be focused a lot on... I kind of realized as I was writing chapter outlines, which are fun. I kind of like that process. It's basically writing the story as opposed to dialogue and prose and stuff like that. It's writing. I have a lot more backstories to kind of create before I go ahead and start writing, because I'm going to get ahead of myself and then I'm going to have to rewrite things, and rewriting things is not particularly the best for if I'm trying to get things done in a timely manner. So that's going to be first step. So here I am just kind of Googling, referencing, researching a concept known as ley lines, which I had thought of to use as kind of a concept for the magic system in my world, and lining them up with existing fault lines, because that's another thing that I need to integrate with it. Obviously ley lines are completely fictional, but the concept of them, that they connect interesting parts of the world, is really intriguing to me. Okay, so it's getting a little too dark to film out here, but I'm going to keep working on this idea for a while. But this is exactly the type of kind of inspirational, motivational momentum to kind of get me going down this path. And I'm really excited actually about it, because this is the type of thing that I can just, once I get that nugget of an idea, I can just roll with it, and I can go really in depth with it, and that's what I need right now. Because I need to cram out all this backstory stuff, I need to cram out all this general parameters of the world, the magic system that's being used. Not as concrete as a lot of other stuff, in the sense of, I use concrete in the wrong way. Concrete in the sense of it's a hard, actual, magic system. This is more of kind of fan fiction of the real world, I should say. It's not like Harry Potter, where they're just, making up spells for the most part, even though some of them are spells that kind of explain things that kind of happen in real life, and it's more of a haha thing. This is more of a me trying to connect all these little dots in the real world to something that can tell a fun story. Obviously none of it's real, but why not? Why can't it be real? That's the point. But yeah, I'm gonna work out here for a little bit longer. Might update you tonight again, might not, but yeah, I'm just kind of enjoying the night. Okay, it is August 5th today, so obviously skipped a few days, but it's about time, you know, that my wife is on a different schedule than usual. So basically her weekends, quote unquote, are Thursdays and Fridays. So most of those days is just us spending time together, because she's also on kind of works later at night, so we really don't see each other most of the week. So most of the actual productive days are going to be, ironically, the weekends and, like, you know, Monday through Wednesday. So yeah, I guess I got a little bit of catching up to do per se, but you know, that's fine. Okay, it was way too hot outside. I should have figured that out, but it's nice and cool in here, and I have my dog. Can't go outside yet because her fence isn't finished, but that's fine. Well, anyways, so I'm gonna get started in here, and I'll let you know how it goes. So here I'm kind of just going with that lane line idea and integrating it with how it's actually going to connect with the whole backstory of the world itself and kind of the magic system, and how basically the main villain of the show would be created, along with the, well, frankly speaking, MacGuffin. And also you can see here that this is also where I figured out where my camera automatically turns off after 30 minutes of recording, but my screen recording software does not. So I will be able to remedy that for next time. But yeah, it was a lot of fun actually writing out backstories for characters and stuff that won't honestly appear for a long time, but whose backstory is necessary for the story. Okay, and today is actually the 7th, Monday, and I'm a little bit behind on editing this video because I realize now it's going to be over 20, looks like 2 minutes long, and it took a long time to edit. I had a lot of fun doing it, but I'm probably going to have to scale down these videos because 22 minutes is way too long to do on a weekly basis, especially since my main priority is writing the book, not making videos. So expect shorter, but also expect me to be variable when it comes to these as I kind of figure out how best to, you know, make these things so they're digestible. So I'm going to try to quickly upload this, get it finished. Yeah, so yeah, I'm a day behind this week already because I usually start writing on the Monday. But, you know, I'm just going to have to double down, and that's fine. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next week.